What's going on, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another video. This is going to be my last video on Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos, at least based on where everything stands right now. I had some time today to rewatch the fight, and rewatch it where I can slow things down and, rewind it a little bit and look for the punches that landed versus the punches that didn't land. And I will tell you that it was a very, very close fight, much closer than what I thought in the previous or my first viewing or the live viewing of the fight. And I thought it was close in the live viewing. I just thought that the inactivity from both made it very, very difficult to score the rounds. You know what I mean? So I did watch the fight again today, and in certain rounds or certain points of the fight, I would watch it in slow-mo, which I do often. When I'm doing film study, I did this with Edwin De Los Santos and Rayo a lot when I was watching and preparing to do a breakdown for the fight, because I wanted to see exactly what the flaws were with Edwin. But if you guys have been here, you guys seen my previous videos leading up to this fight, even before the fight was announced. I was really high on Edwin De Los Santos. I thought, in my mind, he would be the more difficult fight for Shakur than Frank Martin. All right. And the fight proved to be Shakur's toughest challenge, which I thought previously, but not in a way that, the fight obviously didn't go in a way that most of us thought. I thought it was going to be a more action-packed fight, and especially the way that Shakur has been fighting lately. You know what I mean? He seems to be a lot more aggressive than he was like back in the Nakatiya fight, for example, right? That was the first fight where, I thought Shakur was a boring fight. It was a boring fight, but this fight here was even more boring than that. And I rewatched it. And, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I kind of went on a rant earlier this evening and basically calling for a rematch between the two. And I think it's because, first of all, the fight was too close. Second of all, if Shakur is going to continue parading around here like he was injured, and like he didn't have a left hand, he fought with one hand and stuff, you should run him back then. You know what I mean? Because the people that you support or that support people that support you, Floyd obviously supports you. He was there at your fight to support you. Terrence Bud Crawford was there to support you. Andre Ward was there to support you. These are the people you've been around. And these are great Hall of Fame fighters, right? Great fighters, great, phenomenal fighters. I think you should run it back, because Floyd ran it back when he fought Marcos Maidana, when he fought Luis Castillo. Andre Ward ran it back when he fought Sergey Kovalev, which is a fight that many of us believe he lost the first fight. You know what I mean? So if you were injured, if you had a bad night, run it back. Run it back. Make that performance look better. You've been very critical of your performance since that night. So what's the problem with running it back? You've been open that you had a rough night. Let's just not write it off as you having a bad night or you being injured. This guy, to me, was dangerous because I knew the hand speed he had coming into the fight. I knew the power he had coming into the fight. I also knew, from a technical standpoint, I knew that he would be a challenge for you. It's been documented how tough of a fight I thought this would be for you. Okay? So I think there should be a rematch. And I don't believe the rematch would be as boring, because you could do better if you have a left hand, and he can do better being that he did so well to against you compared to everybody else that Shakur has faced at this point. So I think it makes sense to have a rematch to me. I don't think, like, look, you're not going to get the Tank fight based off that performance. Most likely Devin Haney is not going to fight you. And like I stated in the last video that I did, this fight here does not make you look beatable. It makes you look as if when you get in the ring with a dangerous opponent, you're going to retreat. And you don't want to have that reputation. You know what I mean? I know people have compared Shakur to like Devin Haney and even going to Floyd Mayweather, and like, that's bullshit. Let's just call it what it is. It's bullshit. All right. I remember Devin Haney being cautious in the Gamboa fight, but it was a different type of caution. It was more like a caution like, you're dominating your opponent, but you're not going for the stoppage. We knew Gamboa was far older than you, and we knew that he was way past his prime. So Devin Haney was outboxing him and still letting his hands go, but there was no intent in anything that he threw. It was just more like, I'm outboxing you and I'm trying to win the fight, which he did clear. This here, it just seemed like you were way too evasive. And you were evasive against the biggest puncher that you face, and a guy that had the twitch-like reflexes similar to you. Now, I know neither one of them like threw a lot of punches, but I still believe that De Los Santos was probably more accurate than the average fighter that fights Shakur. Not only that, but De Los Santos was able to make Shakur miss more than what we've seen in the past. So I believe with all of that, it warrants a rematch. And again, I don't believe the rematch would be as boring as the first fight, because Shakur would be 100% and De Los Santos would be a more aggressive fighter, simply because his aggression still wasn't enough to pick up the win. You know what I mean? Regardless of how you feel or who you think won the fight, I just think that we could get more, and it doesn't do anything good for neither one of you, because the fighters that Shakur won is not going to face him based off that performance. It doesn't make people feel like, all right, he looks beatable. No, it looks like you could win a fight based on using one hand and pot shotting every now and then, and moving and just being evasive, as opposed to clearly beating a fighter, as we seen in the Valdez fight, the Conceição fight, you know, the Yoshino fight recently that I went to. You know what I mean? This is not a diss. I'm simply saying this as a big fan of Shakur. I am a big fan. He is my favorite younger fighter to watch. But this doesn't mean I got to support everything you do and say on social media or say after the fight. Or I don't have to support even when you have bad performances. We got to be critical in order for you to get better. We cannot sit here and give you a pass. As a fan, not as a hater, as a fan, we can't give you a pass for that kind of performance. It's unacceptable. Especially against a guy that matched your talent closer than anyone else you face. I mean, this guy, it was like, as I'm watching it, and some of you were here, I was saying, as I was calling the fight, I'm sitting here saying, yo, this is like a mirror match, because both of these guys are looking to counter each other. Both of these guys got phenomenal reflexes, you know? And even though De Los Santos have been hurt and knocked down before, I know he's lost before. I'm talking about the night of the fight. In his previous fight against Joseph Adorno, he's looked very, very good. And this is a fight that I was really excited for. This is a fight that I wanted. I know at the very end, the leading weeks up to the fight, people were, hyping the fight up like I was in the very beginning. But in the very beginning, I knew this was going to be a tough fight. And we can't write it off as just being a tough night. It's more than a tough night. It's a guy that could have beaten you, almost beaten you, and to some did beat you. So we got to run that back. We got to run that back. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to fight a Tank or Haney or someone with a bigger name for a bigger purse, then yeah, jump on the opportunity when you can. But what I'm trying to say is this guy here is dangerous. And most fighters are not going to fight him neither based on how he looked against you. You know what I mean? So that's my stance on it. And that's all I'm not going to hold you guys. I'm going to sit here for 30, 40 minutes and keep talking about this. All right. I do want to move on. I have to begin probably tomorrow morning. I will probably start my my last film study for Benavidez and Andre because it's their fight week. All right. But as far as Shakur, I think you should run it back. And now that you made it clear that you were injured, that's even more of a reason on why you should run it back. Because if you could have been better, you could silence all the haters. The haters are going to always be there. The haters are still going to bring up this fight. But if you at least rematch it, it would make a great argument for people if you are to rematch it and win. People can say, or clearly win, people can say like, oh, okay, he was injured. He wasn't really using a left hand like that, but you weren't. You know what I mean? You really wasn't. So if you were really injured, then you should be able to do better with two hands instead of one. You know what I mean? That's my logic. I said on Twitter, this is like a watered down version of Gary Russell Jr. against Mark Messiah. Because Gary Russell was clearly hurt, clearly injured, and very early in the fight. I mean, he even insinuated that he was injured going into the fight. And we saw it. And he did extremely well with one hand. But he still lost the fight because he didn't do much with the other hand. And Mark Messiah was the aggressor. Mark Messiah did more, even though, yes, Gary Russell did very well with just one hand. Obviously, Shakur won this fight, but it leaves a lot of questions, and one of the questions is, were you evasive because you knew you fought a guy with power? I know this guy landed a shot maybe in the first round, was it? First or second round, and maybe you felt the power, and maybe you decided to say, all right, I got to be super, super cautious because I don't want to get hit flush by this guy. And if that's the case, maybe you would do better if you have two hands instead of one. So I think they should run it back. I know people felt it was boring. I know people are going to say, well, we don't want to see the fight again. Well, nobody wanted to see Floyd and Maidana again. You know what I mean? But after the Maidana-Floyd fight, everybody was saying like Floyd lost. Not everybody, but a lot of people were saying Floyd lost, or it should have been a draw because it was that close. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on that moving forward. Obviously, again, if he can't get the big fight, then run it back. Because I don't think Frank Sanchez would be a more difficult fight. I don't think Jermaine Ortiz or whoever they feed you next will be as tough as this. If you're not fighting Devin Haney or if you're not fighting Tank Davis, I think this is the fight. And we just don't want to move on with this being like this. We don't want to leave this like this. You know what I mean? I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that. All right. So anyway, again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. All right. Smash the like button if you like the content. And I'll see you again this week when I'm ready to talk about Benavidez and Andre. All right, I'll see you guys later. Peace.